Good evening. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday all day, but more specifically today, it's kind of a special Wednesday. It's 11/11/2020, which is supposed to have a whole lot of meaning. Many years ago, a good friend of mine, whose husband had just passed, said that every time she looked at the clock, it seemed to be 11:11. And she felt like he was communicating with her. And so she would stop at 11:11 when she'd see it on the clock and just listen, go within and listen. And she felt connected to something greater when that happened. So when she passed, well, I gotta tell you, when I see 11:11 on a clock, I stop and talk to her. It only takes a minute. And it happens twice a day, but it's not kind of like you see it twice a day. But sometimes I do. And when I do, I stop and I think about her and I think, what would she tell me right now? What would her advice be? She was a very wise lady. What would her advice be about what I'm thinking about right now or what I'm dealing with right now? And so 11:11 has taken on kind of a special meaning for me by way of the special meaning that it had for her. And I've got some 11:11 stuff I want to share with you in a couple of minutes. But first of all, I want to say good evening. So, hi. Hello and happy Wednesday and happy 11/11/2020. Dana, glad you're here. Heidi, glad you're here. It's just always good to have faces that I know are friendly with us. And I'm thrilled that you are with us tonight and hopefully sharing some of your ideas too. So, let me talk about this 11:11 business for a minute. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I found some interesting stuff today and I thought I would share it with you. So here's what I found. Every year on 11/11, which of course does happen every November 11th, the powerful 11:11 portal opens up. But this year, the date is extra special and very rare because of the repeating number pattern. The last time we had a repeating number pattern was 1919 and 1818. The next one will be 2121. We're talking years here. But in 2020, we have not just a repeating number pattern, but the number 20 repeated, which is in the same family, numerologically speaking, as the number 11. 11 reduces to the single-digit root number 2. 20 also reduces to the single-digit root number 2. If you add 1 and 1, you get 2. If you add 2 and 0, you get 2. So 11/11/2020 is a pretty phenomenal once-in-a-millennia event. Essentially, what the astrologers and numerologists say is that this numerology code creates an awakening that leads to cosmic balance. More specifically, or more specifically for each of us as individuals, within each person on earth, the sacred masculine and the divine feminine are merging on this day. And so any quest for dominance or imbalance just can't survive. It will be very short-lived because the energies in 11/11/2020 simply won't allow it. The message of the 2000s comes to a head in the 2020s in order to liberate us from unnatural balances or imbalances, as the case may be. The time to acknowledge any energy that is not flowing, not in harmony or uplifting, supportive, or inspiring has come. So if you've got any energies working around you that are clogged or not in harmony or not uplifting or supportive or inspiring, whether it's in your spiritual life, your health, your relationships, your abundance, or your career, any imbalances that seem to exist need to be addressed now. It's time, and you'll have cosmic support for doing that. 1111 and 2020, both of them individually, put all energetic relationships into clear focus. It begins for us individually with our internal voice, which really would like to be heard. So listening to your intuition puts you instantly into a state of balance. As you bypass your world-focused mind and turn within to receive wisdom and guidance from divine intelligence, you begin to really balance out and feel and take delight in what is good and true and in balance. Works this way. 11 listens. 2 relates. I hear you and I understand you. 11 begins. 2 patiently unfolds. 11 channels inspiration. 2 shares that inspiration with kindness to others. 11 is light. 2 is caring. And then the 20 simply doubles up the powerful 0 energy, bringing blessings of divine protection and immensely intensifying all of the energy. The article that I read said this celestial code signals an incredible opportunity to manifest glorious new beginnings from a place of truth, wisdom, kindness, and spiritual inspiration. And finally, the astrologers can't help but notice the activation of 1111 in relation to Aquarius. Aquarius being the 11th sign of the zodiac, which governs the 11th house in astrology. Aquarius is the sign of the Aquarian age, being birthed on the solstice next month. Now, I tried to find more on that, and I couldn't yet, but I'll see what I can find later. Therefore, the 1111 gateway, today's energy, signals the co-creation of a new earth, a new beginning. The creation of you and the divine finally merged as one. You and Source manifesting a magical, transformational, multi-dimensional shift that births our future direction as awakened light beings. With your full conscious participation, the article says, at this unique time, miracles will be able to take root, and they will blossom in 2021 when we bridge the 20th and 21st centuries. We could all use some miracles, couldn't we? Couldn't we? Just something to think on. Just something to think about. Now, let me see what you guys have been talking about while I've been babbling. Ah, Lainey, yay. A good 1111 message, you betcha. Tell him we're all thrilled. Ah, yeah. The 21st celebration of your father's transition. Wow, Heidi. We've known each other a long time, haven't we? Steve, glad you're here. You're never late. You're just here. And we love that. Thrilled. And Philip's here. Yay! Hi, Philip. I'm waving back. A dozen miracles to go. Well, let's just see what we can do about that. Dozen. How about 11? Since we have a theme going today. Happy 11/11, everybody. It's a good sign. You know, I was journaling this morning, and for once, I didn't find myself going on and on and on. I just said, I know it's going to be a good day. I just know that the energy is good. It's just gonna be. It was a perfect morning by my standards, which means it was a little cool for those of you that run that way. But for me, it was perfect. It was beautiful. The sky was blue. The birds were singing. There was just a soft, soft little breeze, kind of. And it was glorious out in the patio this morning. Just glorious. And I said, it's gonna be a great day. And so far, it's been right on target. So I'm a happy camper. I hope all of you are. Okay. Miracles, huh? All right. We'll work on that. I like miracles. Miracles are fun things. Miracles are good for the soul. I am going to write that book, I think. I've been threatening for years, haven't I? Those of you who know me know I've said it before. I want to write a book called Makeup, Medicine, and Miracles. And more the signs are pointing toward that. I don't enjoy writing a whole lot. Short little things, yeah. A whole book, not so much. But, yeah, I remember that, Heidi. I remember being at your mother's service. Yeah, well, Steve, the I got spoke. I got it. I didn't spike. Wasn't a volleyball game. I remember that vividly, as a matter of fact. And Steve's talking about everyday miracles, and they do happen around us all the time. And I really do believe that the more we pay attention to them, the more we recognize them, the better off we are. And the more we see them. See, I think they're happening all the time around us. But if we're not looking for them, if we don't expect them, we just miss the whole thing. It's important, I think, to recognize the miracles that are happening all the time so that we recognize how many of them there are. I'm not sure that we attract more to ourselves, although I think we do. But I think the more aware we become, the more we start consciously looking for miracles, expecting them around us, the more aware we become and the more able we are to participate in and with them. So, sometimes in that way of everyday miracles, people send me things or pass me things or email me things and say, here's an idea for a talk, which CAC is very good at doing and for which I am very grateful, because some days I'm clueless. And those of you who used to stick around on Wednesday nights back at Spirit Works know that very often my inspiration was something handed to me at dinner an hour ahead of time, or that I heard on the radio on the way back from dinner to do the service. And that before that, I really didn't know what I was going to talk about. Um, so Kat handed me one of those things today. And she said, I just think this is terrific, and I think you have to use it. So I'm gonna. I'm gonna. And then I'm gonna kind of segue into something else. But I'm gonna use this first. It's a blog from a gal who calls herself the Bloggess. And her subtitle is Like Mother Teresa, Only Better. So be prepared. And the title of this particular blog is Losing Joy, Finding Joy, literally. And she says, so I'm just going to read you the blog. I hate being read to. I hope you don't mind it, because I don't know any other way to get this information to you. She starts out with, okay, get ready for one hell of a story. I love this woman. My sweet granny, she writes, was in the hospital with COVID and was not expected to make it. This was fraught with complicated feelings because she has dementia and wants her parents and was absolutely ready to go see them. Yesterday we got the call that she had passed peacefully. And it was sad, but it was also a relief. If heaven exists, she's there with her parents and her husband. I talked over the phone to my mom and sister, and we alternately laughed and cried together because we look for joy whenever we can. In fact, my grandmother's name is Joy. It's a family name. She was Joy Nell. My mom is Nelda Joy. And it fits because my granny was the most stubborn, joyful, quietly fascinating person. She was a country girl who sold all of her own clothes. She was a blackjack dealer in Reno and a factory worker in Texas. She was a single mother of 3 young kids when single mothers were really not a thing. She dumped the serial cheater, sorry Grandpa, and never looked back, and found my papa a wonderful man to spend the rest of her life with. She was amazing and sarcastic and always let you know that she was in charge. My calls with my mom kept getting interrupted by a million people who were calling her about arrangements over the next few days, and I joked with my sister that every time it happened, I assumed someone was calling to say Granny was alive again because she decided she wasn't ready after all and was too stubborn to stay dead. We laughed. I told my mom the same joke when she called back, and she laughed. We made our plans. There would be no funeral because it was too dangerous. Their town is a hot spot, and their COVID units are full. A few hours later, I got a call from my mom. So, remember when you were joking about Granny coming back from the dead? Yeah. Well, she's alive again. Y'all, WTF? Turns out there are a lot of patients in the COVID unit. And the hospice worker who called my mom got their wires crossed about who was dead. And the reason we even knew she was still alive was because our funeral home went to pick her body up, and the regular nurse was like, well, you can't have her because she's not dead yet. The hospice worker was beside herself with apologies, but luckily my mom is the kindest person in the world and found herself laughing because this is exactly the kind of story my granny would have found fascinating. And it was an incredibly complicated afternoon of feeling sad and yet relieved that Granny was dead, and then guilty confusion when we found out that she wasn't dead, and also punch-drunk hysterics over a storyline that Granny would have loved. My mom had to put a pause on the obit, and I mentioned that she definitely needed to put both of Granny's death dates in there when she did eventually die. Lisa and I decided that if Granny didn't have her first and second death date on her tombstone, it would be a total waste of a tombstone. And we started figuring out how much it would cost for them to add both dates because we were definitely springing for it. Victor would check from time to time to see how Granny was, and I'd say, oh, she's still dead. And he'd say, what? And I'd be like, wait, undead. She's still undead or not dead. It's confusing, dude. And then he'd go hide in his office because he didn't entirely understand the quickly alternating heavy tears and peals of giggles as my sister and I told granny stories to each other, and as Gabby Joy yelled, "It was just a dress rehearsal," in the background. And then a few hours later, Mom called me again and was like, "Okay, she did it this time." And I was pretty like, "Are you sure?" And she was like, "I mean, pretty sure." And instead of getting super sobby like the first time Granny died that day, we were able to laugh, and it was the most healing sort of thing. And I have no doubt that Granny probably planned all of this. Finding joy and losing joy. Literally. So, there's the Granny story, which of course led me to a whole thing thinking about, given how my day started, thinking about choosing joy. So let's talk joy, shall we? Wait, before I get started, if anyone out there is actually named Joy, well, I have a question for you. Is it your real name, you know, the one on your birth certificate, or did you assume it? What was your name before it was Joy? And why did you change it? Now, please don't let me annoy you. Nothing I say should be taken personally, unless, of course, it should. But only you can be the judge of that. I know several Joys. Some of them really know how to live up to their name. And some of them, present company excluded, of course, are, how can I say this? They're using the name as an affirmation, is what they're doing. Shakespeare says, "Joy delights in joy." Shakespeare. I'm not sure that's always true. So, you are Joy. So is Allegra, incidentally. And Letitia and Tish. Their names mean joy, too. And Beatrice, on the other hand, is a bringer of joy. And I wonder if Abbies or Abigails know that they are calling themselves God is Joy. Moniker-wise, there's a lot of joy to be passed around. Now, I really don't mean to embarrass anyone or insult anyone or put anyone on the spot, though it may be too late for that. The point is, if you really are joyous and you've changed your name to reflect that, that's wonderful. Good for you. And you probably, in that case, don't feel at all embarrassed by my ranting. And you probably didn't need to change your name anyway, because everybody who mattered already knew you were filled with joy. But if you changed your name because you thought it would somehow make you a happier person than you previously were, or make other people think you were happier, here's some late-breaking metaphysical news. It doesn't work that way. Putting a new name on a name tag or on your driver's license won't make you joyous, any more than putting a wheelbarrow in a garage makes it a car. If you want to be joyous, if you want to be happy, if you want to make the world a better place just because you are in it, it isn't enough to change what you call yourself. You've got to actually change something in the person involved. Now, having said that, if you've been waiting for it, Scripture informs us that joy cometh in the morning. Yeah, we can probably even assume that Beatrice is bringing her. The Apocrypha tells us that gladness of heart is the life of man, and a joyfulness of man prolongeth his days. Science, incidentally, supports that view. So, whatever your name is, joy is good. And it's good for you. So, well, here's my question. Given that joy delights in joy, thank you, William Shakespeare, and that joy is not only a positive experience, but a healthy one as well, why are we not all joyful all the time? I don't mean why don't we all change our names. I think I've covered that point sufficiently. I mean, if it's the life of us, and if it prolongeth our days, and if it really is a really good thing, why on earth would we not choose joy all the time? Why not joy instead of complaining? Why not joy instead of anger? Why not joy instead of frustration? I mean, joy is a choice, isn't it? Then why not joy instead of some other emotion that furrows your brow and screws up your face and messes up your body and your mind? I think I can hear some of you saying, it's not that easy. William Butler Yeats said the fascination of what's difficult has dried the sap out of my veins and rent spontaneous joy and natural content out of my heart. Wordsworth tells us about the wonder of being surprised by joy. Byron tells you to let your joy be unconfined. Let my joy be unconfined. And some of you are saying, but my life is difficult. It's fraught with challenges. There's the job and the boss and the relationship and the money and the kids, and then there's Fred. Trust me, it's difficult. If you say so. But I say it doesn't have to be so difficult. You just have to become fascinated with an idea that's bigger than your presumed difficulty. Which may mean getting over some stuff you've been carrying around for a while and getting on with stuff that brings you joy. George Bernard Shaw put it really, really well. This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being thoroughly worn out before you are thrown on the scrap heap, the being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. Wow. I mean, there's a bigger idea. Being used for a mighty purpose. Being thoroughly worn out before going to the cosmic scrap heap. Being a force of nature and not a whiny wimp. What about that? But wait, what is that sound I hear? Is it the crunch of sap drying in someone's veins? Isn't that a great phrase? Is it the rip of the renting of natural content? Is it the swan song of spontaneous joy as it leaves someone's heart? Or is it the sound of your mind thinking? Mighty purpose, used up, worn out, force of nature, sorry, way too difficult. Goethe says, we end in joy. At the risk of disagreeing with a truly great mind, we aren't ever going to end in joy if we don't get started. Rilke wrote, "The most visible joy can only reveal itself to us when we've transformed it within." If we are ever, ever, ever going to be in joy, we've got to get over our joy crushing, our fascination with difficulty. Pretend with me for a minute. If all things were possible, and maybe they are and maybe they aren't, but we're pretending. If all things were possible, what mighty thing would you do tomorrow that would make you truly joyous? Remember, we're pretending. What would you do or be or become that you would be so joyous doing or being or becoming that you would be absolutely thrilled to thoroughly wear yourself out, to completely use yourself up, doing, being, or becoming it? Okay, so no more pretending. Why don't you just go do it? Why don't you just get up in the morning and go do that thing that would make you feel like a force of nature? An act that would not only make the world a better place, but leave you feeling so fulfilled and so complete, and dare I say, joyous, that you could literally die happy. I'll tell you why. It's difficult. There's the job, there are bills to pay and gas to buy and kids to raise and a pandemic to get through and Georgia's votes to be counted. Well, we've all got our ailments and grievances, don't we? Look, I'm here every Sunday at noon and Wednesday at 7 p.m. and I'd like not to be talking to myself. So I'm going to try and redeem myself by not accusing you outright of complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. That better? In truth, there are probably only a few of you who do that anyway. But frankly, see, my concern is not about the complainers. Everybody needs to be good at something. My concern is for those of you who have become so mesmerized by the idea that joy has to be difficult that you are not devoted to making yourself happy. The experience of happiness, of joy, takes focus. It requires commitment on your part. You have to participate in it. It demands that you stop and think about what you are thinking about, and if that thought is creating something other than joy, or the promise of joy in your mind and heart, then you have to choose another thought. Resentment is a choice for not joy. Envy is a choice for not joy. Jealousy, frustration, gossip, lack, bitterness, boredom, suspicion, limitation, difficulty, not joy, not joy, not joy, not joy. Choose again. You cannot complain that the world is not making you happy if you are not choosing thoughts that will create that happiness in your own mind and life. It doesn't have to be difficult. It just has to be done. Okay, so you may not wake up tomorrow morning ready to take on that great thing that promises true and deep and lasting joy. But if you wake up tomorrow and make the choice to take one step in that direction, to do even one small thing that will make you feel that there's a greater purpose to your life, you will have moved closer to joy. So here's one more question. If joy cometh in the morning, will you be there to meet her? Will you be ready to open your mind and your heart to joy? Will you be doing what you need to be doing to welcome joy into your life? Will you be living largely, loving greatly, believing deeply? Will you consciously you choosing joy. If you're still not sure if the difficulty of all of it is still bothering you, or if you have somehow become so fascinated with some other limiting idea that it is stopping you from the fullest expression of joy, may I suggest that you apply yourself to become fascinated with a bigger idea. An idea so big, so outlandish, so outrageous, that fear or difficulty or current circumstances simply do not have a chance. Maybe you could become fascinated with the idea of becoming more than you ever thought you could be. Maybe you could become fascinated with the idea of becoming what you were born to be. Look, it really isn't difficult. You go out there and go about being you, and you make choices for joy. And you notice when and if you find yourself fascinated by a lesser idea. And then you get up on Sunday and you come back here. And I'll push you a little bit. See? Easy. And there's even help. I hope I haven't offended any of the joys in this world, because I'd sure like to see you on Sunday. But until then, keep on keeping on. Be joyful. Be joyous. Choose it. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. Isn't Granny Joy's story fabulous? I loved it too. Cac said, you have to use this, and I looked at it and went, yeah, I do. I really do. We need to talk about Granny Joy. Absolutely, Steve. It requires a willingness to suspend disbelief and just believe that you can do it, and that it's there and it's available for you. And I know that there are times when it feels like joy's out of reach, but I really think that's a choice. First story, back to Granny. They laughed and they cried. They were in joy over Granny and Granny's passing. And then they were in joy again because Granny hadn't passed. But ultimately, it was about choosing joy. You know, we can beat our breasts and tell ourselves that life is just awful and that things are terrible and it's all falling apart and everything's against us, or not. I think we all had somewhat of an experience of that this past week, haven't we? Numbers were up, we're joyful. Numbers are down. Oh, now we're anxious. Now we're worried. Now we're concerned. Now we're not happy. Numbers are back up. Yay! Another state came in. Yay! That one's still not there. Up and down, and up and down, and up and down. My goodness, people. Choose joy. Choose joy. It's about choosing the highest good, and I think joy is probably the highest good. Tears may come in the night, but joy cometh in the morning. Choose joy. Heidi, You give me a lot of credit, sweetheart. I try not to offend, but I know periodically I say something and I think later, oh God, did I really say that? Did I say that out loud? I wonder how many people are mad at me. Oh, people, 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 people. Aren't they grand? Aren't they wonderful? The world would certainly be a poorer place without us, wouldn't it? I think it would. And if we don't take care of the environment, we may get a chance to find out. But that's another whole talk. I won't go there tonight. I won't. So don't you take me there, because you know I follow where you lead. Oh, good for you, Steve. Yeah. Oh, we do get addicted, don't we? To our anger and our depressions and our ain't it awfuls. And that's just not healthy for any living being. It's just not. Joy is a choice. It really is. We forget that sometimes. I think we wait for something out there to make us happy and make us feel joyous. And you know, there isn't always something or someone out there that's up for doing that. We've got to find it within ourselves. I have I have talked about my hummingbirds before. And at one point there were like 5 or so of them out there all the time. Well, the one I originally named Pearl, which was the smaller green one, is aggressive and territorial and scares off all the other hummingbirds. They still try to come in periodically, and he chases them off. It's like, this is my garden. There are 4 feeders in the backyard. He wants them all. And I think in the last few days he has moved. I think his original home was in the big tree in the neighbor's yard. And I would watch him come out of the tree and fly in and go to the feeders and land on one of our poor little volcano tree that has now lost all of its leaves because it's shedding. And he would plop down on one of the branches and just sit and wait for another hummingbird to come in so he could get him out of there. And then he would go back to the branch and sit on the branch. And I would notice that anytime I was thinking about something that was off or something that wasn't going right or just kind of mentally complaining about something, and I didn't have to be doing it out loud, he'd go, tisk, tisk. Like he was saying to me, oh, poor baby. I've got this whole yard to take care of and all of these other hummingbirds to chase off, and you're feeling sorry for yourself. So I've renamed him Tisk Tisk, and Tisk Tisk brings me joy. I cannot be depressed when that silly hummingbird is around because he sits in his tree and goes, or he flies around the yard. He spends a lot of time grazing over the grass, going right over the top of it, I guess getting little insecty things and whatnot. And then he's got this zzz, the hummingbird hum. But when he thinks I need a little straightening out, he gets up in his tree and goes, and it just makes me laugh. And, as I was starting to say, I think he's moved into our yard now. The last few days he's been coming out of the little ficus tree over in the corner. Now he still occasionally flies off toward the other big tree, but I think he's moved into the ficus tree.
I saw the moving van.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. How big was the moving fan for a hummingbird. Little.
Little.
Pretty smushy. He's going like this, about like that. He's pretty cute. He's pretty cute. Tisk tisk. Makes me happy.
He even goes after people. When you go out there and you're around his feeders, he goes after you. He zooms right through your hair.
Oh, I think he's just being friendly.
No, he wants to make sure I'm not going after him.
Don't suck any of the nectar out of his feeders and you'll be fine.
I know. I can't even get close to him or he comes after me.
Tipsy and I just sit out there in the morning and are glad that he's with us.
Yeah, well, you're not attacked by him.
No, he brings me joy.
Brings me
that would be the whole point. To each her own, as it were. Oh. So I have my hummingbird and my hummingbird brings me joy. What brings you joy? What lightens your heart? What makes you smile? What can you not help but smile at? And if you don't know, if you don't have a list of those things, start creating them. I know when Truffle was still with us, I loved walking behind him when we were on a walk. I loved it because he had this weird little Charlie Chaplin walk. He would kind of go from side to side to side. And watching that little butt go side to side to side as he walked just made me laugh out loud. Now I've got Hummingbird. We also have Tipsy, who has kind of a strange walk. Find those things that make you laugh. Those things that lighten your spirit, that lift your heart, that clear your mind. Laughter clears your mind. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. You'll see more clearly after you laugh. It's good for you. Joy cometh in the morning. Let her come. Let her be in your home and your heart and your mind. And find things that attract her. Find things. You will. You will. They're there. If you start looking for them, you'll find them. They're there. They're there. I'd loan you my hummingbird, but he's mine. And Cac's afraid of him, which makes it even better.
Well, he terrorizes me.
I used to have a friend, my 1111 friend, as a matter of fact, who was afraid of birds in general. We went to Florence together and went out on the piazza where there are always a gazillion pigeons. And I found out she really was afraid of them. She'd ew, and back off. I said, it's a bird. It's not going to hurt you. They're not attacking. They're just walking around. Ah! But those were at least pigeons. This is a hummingbird.
We're fine until he dive bombs me. He's a guest in the garden. He doesn't own it.
Tell him that.
He's a guest. He's a welcome guest.
Steve, if you can do Sudoku in a couple of minutes, a minute or two, he says. I'm great at crossword puzzles. I love crossword puzzles. I love them. I love them. I love them. I work them all the time. I don't get Sudoku. And I'm pretty good with numbers normally, but boy, do I not get it.
I thought it was a Japanese martial art.
We'll talk later. Sudoku. No. Wrong. Okay, so here we are. We've got just a few minutes left. Let's pray. Shall we? Let's pray. And close your eyes if that's comfortable, or just soft focus. You know the drill. Do what you need to do to turn your attention within, to be in that place where joy abides. Breathe deeper now. Another breath and let it just take you there. To the quiet place. The place within you where the essence of joy abides. That place in the stillness where all the world chatter and mind chatter are stilled, and there is just you and spirit and joy. How good it feels to be in the presence of God. To be still and know that within you there is a quiet spot, a serene place where joy abounds. It is that place that responds to the beauty of a sunset, or the gentleness of a flower, or the marvel of a cloud that takes a shape and then abandons it and finds another. What brings you joy? What lifts your mind and your heart? What makes you smile? A deep, abiding smile that takes over your entire face and then your whole body as you are lifted to a sweeter place. Find that. And I know for each of us there is that place. There are those things which are simply joyous. And I know that we recall them now and we remember, so that we can go to those things in our mind whenever we need to and find joy. There are things that will initiate tears. And the tears last for a night. But joy cometh in the morning with the memories and the awareness and the deep, deep connection to the spirit of joy within us. And so I claim for each of us tonight that we know where that place is and we know how to get there. And we choose to abide in joy. And that very choice lifts our minds and our hearts and our lives in the most amazing and miraculous ways. We have chosen joy. And she comes bringing light and laughter and love and understanding and kindness Those are her traveling companions. And we cannot separate one from the other. I know for each of us tonight that some little corner has been turned. Some peaceful place has been found. And joy reigns tonight, tomorrow, and forever. And so it is. It has been a good day. And just in case you find yourself feeling bad, or more specifically, feeling sorry for yourself, I'd like you to take my little hummingbird's advice. It's hard to keep feeling sorry for yourself when someone's going. Hear that. Make the sound yourself if you have to. But know that somewhere there's a hummingbird who will respond to you. And he'll show up. And when he does, you might want to name him Joy. Or not. It has been a good day. It's been a great evening. I always love your company. Steve, I'm so glad you were able to be here tonight, too. I miss you when you're not here. And tell that partner of yours that I love him and miss him. I do. Heidi, it was fun thinking about your mother and being with you at that moment, at that particular time in your life. It's always fun. You guys bring back the best memories for me. You really do. I love that. And there's joy in that. So thank you. Take care of yourselves. I'll be back on Sunday. I hope you'll be here. In the meantime, just go find some joy. And remember to keep track of those things that bring joy to you or bring you to joy. It's been a great day. Thank you. I love you all. I'll see you Sunday.